the great Tom Nash. Thank you so much for jumping on the show. I really appreciate it, my friend. I know that you've been following SoFi a bunch. Your community has been telling you to talk about it more often. And I've been berating you on Twitter to let me pitch it to you. What
Yeah.
do you think
Well,
about the company? Sorry, go
first of
ahead.
all, that wasn't embarrassing at all. The great Tom Nash. But I'm not going to argue with you, you know. And by community, you mean you? Then yes, I was. Yes, that's true.
Yeah.
So let's talk about SoFi. I'm my position on SoFi before we start. As you know, I'm generally bullish. I like Anthony Noto a lot. I called him the Captain America of CEOs.
Yeah.
His CV is incredible. So I'm open to listen more.
I think
I
you even
don't.
said he might have been a top 10 CEO in America
Yeah,
right now.
I said it.
Yeah.
I said it, and the way you know who's the look. Have you ever heard of a CEO actively buying up shares? Not ESOP, no 10B plans, not grants, not stock-based comp. Legitimately in the secondary, just buying up shares of his own company,
Yeah.
heavy. Like I've never seen that before.
Yeah.
Such a vote of confidence. Such a vote of confidence. Like that's to me that was the final seal. Like you look at his CV, you look the way he engages with his community, how he talks with retail investors, what he's done with the company. People don't remember, but SoFi used to be a shit house before he took over.
Yeah.
It was a one trick pony, fucking incredibly horribly managed, and no vision. He comes in with this very ambitious game plan. Nobody thought was possible. Turns everything around, and he look. I think he did a phenomenal job, but that's just me as a bystander. I'm not like actively engaged with the community. Somebody who's looking from the sidelines, look. He deserves, I think, an A+ for what he's done with the company.
Sure. Sure. So I'm curious because obviously you've done a little bit of research into the company and and Noto obviously, like you said, is extremely bullish, buying like over $10 million
Yeah.
of his own stock back with cash. He's technically not the founder, like you said, but still, he took it under his wing and he's doing quite well. That being said, what part of the stock is not making you buy right now?
So first of all, I think you can call him a founder just in the same breath as you can call Elon the founder, because Tesla pre-Elon wasn't really the Tesla that
Yeah,
SoFi pre-Noto wasn't the SoFi. No bank charter, no everything in finance in one-stop shop thing. That thing didn't exist. So
yeah,
it kind of is quasi-founder, just the way Elon is. I think Elon even has a court ruling that says that he is the founder, like legitimately. So he's allowed to claim
wow,
founder.
wow, okay, yeah,
I
yeah,
think
yeah.
I think they took him to court. They're still salty, even though he made him a lot of money. But what makes me not own the stock? Because I'm going to answer in the words of the great Peter Lynch. There's always so much time to buy into great companies. I'm not
Mm,
in any sort of rush. I don't think, it's the same message I talk about with Palantir. I literally tweeted this today,
yeah,
sorry, I posted. I'm sorry, Elon, I posted. I, didn't- I posted it today. I'm still getting used to the new verbiage.
yeah, yeah,
So I posted today. I said, "Hey guys, you got at least 3 years with Palantir. There's no rush. Just slowly build your position." So with SoFi, it's definitely on my radar. It's on my short list, but I'm not actively in it because I have limited capital. I deploy it on the things that I'm invested in mentally, emotionally, and I've researched and I understand. I'm just not that deep into SoFi to commit capital to it right now. But just the same thing as Palantir. Even if I start investing now, it's going to be a slow burn. It's going to be over the course of the next 3 to 5 years.
yeah.
It's never too late to start and build a position in a good company.
Yeah, no, I think especially now in this type of macro, like I do think one of my favorite things about SoFi is the fact that um, there really isn't a market for selling loans right now. Like I don't know if you follow it this closely, but a bunch of these regional and community banks are absolutely offloading a bunch of loans. It's flooding the marketplace, and just like any sort of real estate market or anything, what happens whenever there's a ton of supply and little demand? Well,
Mm-hmm.
then there's larger discounts, right?
Yep.
And yet, SoFi has always found these massive problems. Student loans went away due to Trump's moratorium. Now there's a terrible pause on all of the loans that are being sold right now, and now they can't actually do their main, sort of objective with their loans. They have to hold them. And these are all dragging the stock down a ton. But yet, quarter after quarter, we're seeing triple beats from the company. Like, eventually, we have to put some sort of execution premium on this stock for Anthony Noto to continue to bump out amazing quarters.
I agree with you. I think generally speaking, the stock is not expensive at all. If you look at it a little bit, when in doubt, zoom out. Obviously, it's not nearly as as expensive as it used to be back in the pandemic days, right?
Yeah. Well, hey,
But
you know what? I was honestly never a supporter back in the $20, in the $20 ranges. The first time I purchased was about $14 and then on the way down. But yeah, I mean, I do actually think it was a little bit overvalued in the 20 plus ranges, especially for where the business was back then. Like
yeah,
2021 to 2023, I think you saw my tweet today actually of the growth that SoFi's seen over
yeah.
the last 3 years. Like, what does that do to the company's valuation? And I want your, like, I mean, I saw that you saw the tweet, but like, what did you think about that sheet that I put up? Do you remember
Well,
the one
look,
I'm talking about?
yeah,
I'll
yeah,
show
yeah,
you.
I just about an hour ago.
Yeah, I'll put it up right here. Oh,
Yeah,
actually,
look, it's the same. It's the same story as Palantir, really. Like the story is very similar. Stock drops heavily since
yeah,
the pandemic highs. Business gets exponentially better. The pricing is absolutely more attractive. So if you are a bull on the stock, there's just a no-brainer. I look at this and I see greatness. Look at the growth rate. I mean, look, I didn't need to see this chart because I like to look at bottom lines.
yeah,
So this is a company that year to year, what they did like 45%. Next year they'll do another 40%.
hmm
I look at the multiple. I see what they're trading in 5 times sales, which for a fintech company is very low. 5 times sales is what, 1/4 of what Palantir is trading at right now, right? Not even talking about the other
sure,
companies. So these numbers you're showing, look at the previous numbers. If you pull the chart back up, look at
yeah,
the first column. So that column was pre-bank charter, and pre all these new business lines that Anthony developed. So Q2 2020, the stock was, let's do Q2 2020, right? Q2 2020, the stock was trading at $25. The numbers go kaboom,
that
and
that
then
was
this
probably 2021 actually.
uh,
25.
January 18th, 2021, 21.65.
Yeah,
So
okay. So this is 20. This is the year
$20.
prior.
Yeah, yeah. So
Yeah,
let's so
weren't public back then.
okay. So
Here, let me switch. I do have those numbers. We can go back to those. All right, let me bring this up.
you have Q4
I've
2020.
got every quarter.
So let's do Q4 2020. The point still remains.
Okay, which
Okay,
which one? Q2 2021.
perfect. Okay, so they've more than doubled the business.
Oh yeah,
Okay, so more
yeah.
than doubled the business. Q2 2021. Yeah, that's 20. That's the 20 plus region, bro. That's the 20 plus region.
Here, let me dump these off.
So business doubles, share price drops significantly, right? Share price halves, and the one thing I don't understand, like, look, you add in the bank charter, you add in the massive growth, you have not an expensive valuation. I'm looking at the valuation right now. They're 4.5 price to sales. Forward price to sales is 4 based on guidance. So they're gonna be trading at 4 price to sales. That's an attractive valuation. So I never got the high short interest on this stock. I think the only reason that's pulling down the short term price action and driving up the shorts here is because it was a SPAC. B, it was a Chamath SPAC. His SPACs did not have a good track record.
Sure.
That's the only one that I can think of that did anything. So no disrespect to Chamath, but his SPACs didn't really pan out. So because it's a SPAC, because it has that taint on it, I think that's why it's so heavily shorted. Maybe because it's history before Noto,
Well,
one trick. Well, we said it's a one trick pony before him. Really poor management, etc. Current results don't justify a 14% short interest.
this is the way I'm thinking that that Wall Street is seeing it. Is that there's another company that I cover, not as often, but it's called Lending Club. I am not a supporter of Lending Club. I do not buy this company, um, but they are in a very similar business. They do personal loans, they do checking and savings accounts, they have a nationally chartered bank license. Like on paper, if you're Wall Street and you're looking at these two companies, they have very similar member numbers, they have very similar style of clients, like 700 plus FICO scores, high income, very similar. One has had unbelievably terrible execution. The company is shrinking like crazy. And then SoFi has done very, very well. And now Lending Club has been on earnings calls saying, you know what? We are seeing an extremely hard marketplace going forward. It's only going to get worse from here, not better. Their guidance is like terrible. And where I think Wall Street is seeing this is, okay, how is it possible that both of these companies have to sell loans onto the marketplace and one company gets a premium and the other one doesn't? How does that make sense? And so they're shorting it. But the truth is these companies cannot be compared similarly, right? The one thing that Lending Club never did was they never shifted their business model. See, whenever lending
Yeah.
or whenever selling loans onto the marketplace got bad, Anthony Noto and his team stopped selling loans. Like I know that sounds like a hard thing to, or like that sounds like bad math. Bad marketplace, don't sell loans. Okay, so they didn't. I mean, what a hard thing to figure out. Lending Club never figured that out. Okay. And so they're holding on to more loans, SoFi is. And I think Wall Street is expecting them that they're actually going to have to start selling them soon.
I want to show you something. In my opinion, the one thing that's holding SoFi back for more kind of short-term pricing action is it's the same thing with Palantir, is that profitability. Once they hit profitability, it's a different narrative. It's
Sure.
very easy to hate on a company that's in pre-profitability stage, even if okay, so they'll it's the same narrative. Oh, you're growing like crazy, but you're not profitable, so it's a fake growth,
Yeah.
etc. 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 SoFi post profitability is like I think they're gonna have the Palantir jump. The actual profitability is gonna drive that next phase. But
Yeah.
I just
Yeah.
ran a quick DCF here on my platform. I'm not gonna name it. I don't want to plug it here. But I
No,
ran a
no,
quick,
no, please plug it, please.
so this is Stock MVP. This is my own platform. I've built it with my partner Pete. So never mind. So I ran a quick DCF here. This is what we built this for. So I ran a quick DCF based on SoFi numbers. So the system pulls the numbers. I just added a few assumptions: 35% EBITDA growth, 45% depreciation growth, 3% capex growth. It's based on the existing numbers. So 3%
Sure.
is from here, 45 from here, and the EBITDA instead of 220%, I lowered it to 35. So I basically went super bearish. Okay, I've as anybody with a little bit of financial background can see that I've been super conservative here. So I gave it a 12% discount rate, which is reasonable. I didn't do like a proper WACC calculation on it. I should, but let's just give it 12. So based on this kind of very high level initial DCF, it's a $9.50 stock. That's my DCF
Right.
valuation.
Right.
So currently, I don't think it's expensive based on my initial DCF. It has to be tweaked. I have to find the actual cost of capital, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But it doesn't seem to me that it's too expensive right now at this valuation. And if
You know
the
what though,
one
Tom?
thing,
I think you said it best yourself on your last video on SoFi is that
oh,
you
that's
know what?
another problem. You see this? That 37%. It has the same. It's so funny how it's so similar to Palantir. I understand now why Amit likes it so much because it speaks the same language. Palantir has 35% institutional investors. That got 37. It's so weird how similar they are. It's same problem. Like as long as institutional investors are not at about 50-60%, it's gonna have that downwards pressure in the price. That's another problem for them. They gotta fix that. Again, profitability heals all wounds. You know how like in basketball, winning solves all the drama in the locker room. Or in
Yeah,
hockey, I
yeah.
don't know. You're Canadian, so I'll use hockey, right?
Well, okay.
Eh, but
Well, okay. Here's the thing, though. You quoted Peter Lynch before. I'll quote him as well. Maybe not as accurately, but he doesn't buy companies with high institutional ownership. He buys companies with low institutional ownership so that he can buy before them. Once they buy, once this company increases their institutional ownership to 60, 70%, that's when the stock runs,
But
right?
that's not the point I was making. I was saying I was looking for a pathology report why the share price is still not spiking, why there's a
Well, fair.
15% short interest. Like where's the pain coming from? And my
Yeah.
pathological report is lack of profitability, poor history as far as the previous management, previous model, poor history as far as SPACs and Chamath, and this low percentage of institutional investors. They when they come in, as you mentioned, they drive up the price. So that's why you're getting it right now at a discount. That's the
Yeah.
pathology report I can kind of offer you here, in my
I
opinion.
I think as well with the DCF reports, is that like I think you even said a similar thing with Palantir. Like your software will say one thing, but that's not the only way that you'll value Palantir alone, right? And in
Yep.
fact, you might value it much higher than that. And I find the same thing for me with SoFi is like I believe that this stock will hit so many verticals. I don't even think that the growth rate increases is even at its cap right now.
Yep.
Most companies, I think, will go down. I think that SoFi is going to hit new verticals that they haven't hit yet. And I mean, in that regard, Anthony Noto himself, the CEO of this company, who for the most part, if you've seen any of their guidances or anything, have been quite conservative. Okay, that's why they triple beat every quarter. I mean, they always
Yep.
kind of lower expectations and then beat. He said by 2030, SoFi wants to be a top 10 financial institution. Okay, that would more than 10x the company's value, and he specified that that's by market cap.
Yep.
That
What is similarity to Palantir though? They it's like so funny like to see all this. It's the same verbiage that I don't know if you saw the conference call that Palantir had after earnings. Karp
Mhm.
was saying we're going to be the most important software company in the world. And
Right.
he didn't say by 2030, but it's so I get why I'm so fascinated by SoFi because it has a lot of similarities. Like
Well,
bad narrative, good financial results, very dedicated community, etc., etc.
this is why I think I can maybe convert you because it's the same reason how I converted Amit as well. Is like
I don't need to
I,
be converted. I was bullish when I came in through the door.
I want to see some
Uh,
purchase orders.
if this stream gets to 1,000 likes, I'll buy one share of SoFi just for solidarity.
There we go. 1,000 likes. 1,000 likes. That's what we need. And then Tom forever has to say that he was a SoFi shareholder, regardless if he
Yeah,
sells.
it's one stock, bro. I can make 100%.
Yeah, yeah. Walk away with $16.
Let's go.
That being said, what's it called? What I also find fascinating between the conversations between Palantir and SoFi is that how a bunch of can I say Palantards? Is that is that a thing people
I
say?
don't know. I've never used that term.
Yeah,
I
okay.
always call them the
It's
Palantir
definitely
community.
uncommon.
I've never understood where this came from.
I have no idea. These Palantirians, I don't know what you call yourselves.
I
They're
don't
all
know.
talking about cross-selling now to traditional clients to AIP software, right? For a lot of Foundry, maybe even Gotham clients, they all have that potential to have this now second product AIP, and I think it's an amazing solution that Palantir has got itself into. It's increasing their total addressable market like crazy. I find similar things with SoFi. SoFi used to be only a lending platform. Whenever you start introducing things like checking accounts, credit cards, all these things that people just look at as boring old banking is a massive multiplier whenever you're looking at average revenue per user, right? And then whenever you're looking at they're breaking records on how many new members that they've grown. 584,000 last quarter. Okay, sure, maybe that person has only gotten a checking or savings account or a relay product. But then that person gets into credit cards. Then that person maybe potentially down the line gets themselves into a home loan. But you only paid for that client once, right? That is very exciting.
I want to pull up something to show you, but it's so funny. You know how Twitter has this trending for you.
Mm-hmm.
For some reason, I'm getting Rolex. I've never owned a watch. Like
We were just talking about how
I don't own jewelry. Like
Yeah.
you pitching me Rolex, Elon? Come on, bro. So I want to pull something up. So you know Jesse Dow, right?
I do. I do.
So have you seen his tweet? I want to show this tweet to the audience. I thought it was hilarious. With all the signups.
Yeah, no, that's great.
Where
I know
is it?
exactly what you're
When you
talking about.
need it, it's never here.
If
Motherfucker,
you
how
can
much
bring
you
it up.
tweet? Where? How many tweets have you? Jesus, the fucker,
Yeah,
do you ever
he
work?
tweets. He
He
tweets.
tweets. What? I can't find it. It's just too much shit. I
I
can't
don't
find it.
know. Like Jesse is blowing up on Twitter. I'm like, it's him and you that are racing to 100,000. You're both gonna probably get it by the end of the
No,
year.
he's getting it before me. His pace is like he's gonna pass me in a week, bro.
Uh,
I can't find
he's
it.
doing phenomenally, and you know what? He's been a big supporter of the channel. So shout out to Jesse Dow.
Yeah. He's a. I found him through his rant, so I didn't know who the guy. So anyway, so he has a post. I can't find it now, of course. Oh, I found it. Okay,
Okay, I got it as well.
Okay, so this is the tweet in question. Oh, tweet. Sorry, the post. Sorry, Elon. So this is the post in question. So he posted like all his like. This is in the span of what of 2 weeks. All the people who sign up just from his link
Yeah,
to SoFi.
it's so small. What you're looking at is money referral bonuses from SoFi in the amount of $75 per person, and
Yeah.
he's made thousands of dollars
Yeah.
from
Absolutely
referring
insane.
people to SoFi.
So that just goes to show you how many people sign up for SoFi. I mean, you don't sign up for these. None of these are student loans clients.
Yeah,
These are people who sign up for banking services. So
right.
which is and then brokerages and whatever that may be. Now, by the way, so the way I found Jesse was like so funny because I didn't know who the guy was, and then he had this rant. It's like basically I don't remember, but something along the lines. I'm shutting you down, motherfuckers. No more like tips from me because all you do is misuse this. You pump and dump, and then you blame me when it doesn't work. Fuck you all. Fuck you. And there's like, I was like, this guy gets it. I was like, I said, and then I followed it just on the based on what he just wrote here. He's a smart dude. He gets it,
Yeah.
and then I followed him, and then he followed me back.
No, see, Jesse's an interesting character because I don't trade at all, and he's like really into the technical analysis and all these things. I don't play that game at all. But yeah, we've gotten along very well because, you know what? I'm doing the research on the companies, and he's telling me when to buy them. So
Yeah.
it's
No,
it's worked out.
People like him because he gets right more often than he gets wrong. But what unfortunately happens on social media, and that's why I think he did the right choice by changing up the content a little bit, because the one time you fuck up, because nobody shoots 100%, even Steph Curry shoots 40%, right?
Sure.
The one time you fuck up, they're gonna come at your throat.
Hmm.
Like how much hate I got for Palantir when it dropped to like $7. It's a very. I told him it's like being a goalkeeper.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
sorry, it's like being a kicker. So you're Canadian, so I use goalkeeper. But it's like being a kicker. Like you can't do well. You expected to make every field goal, and then the one time you fuck up, then you're public enemy number one.
Yeah. No, I mean, I had to carry that SoFi torch all the way through $4 a share, when only me and the CEO Anthony Noto were buying, as if that was like people are like, man, you're delusional. I'm like, man, this guy's pouring millions of dollars into this stock. It's triple beating every quarter. And for some people, for some reason, people think like it's just going to automatically turn around. Like what part of the macro environment do you think is worse than what we're going through right now?
Well, people criticize Alex Carr for not buying shares in the secondary market. Motherfuckers, he doesn't need to. Peter Thiel gave him $1 billion.
Yeah,
The next 10 years, he gave him $1 billion in stock-based comp. So either Peter Thiel is an idiot, which I highly doubt, and he just gave $1 billion to a bozo, or this guy's worth $1 billion. You decide. I think Peter Thiel knows what he's doing, and that's also why Carp isn't buying shares in the secondary, because he's sitting on the billy for the next 10 years. It's enough.
What was your take on the buybacks for Palantir?
My take is very simple. I think first of all, there was one guy in my comment section who commented that how dare they do more buybacks after all the delusion it's gonna be like it's kind of.
Oh, you tweeted about that.
He deleted the comment.
Yeah.
I was going back trying to find it. The comment is gone. I was super nice.
Buy back.
Yeah. I was super nice. I explained it in the comment. I wasn't like being an asshole, but I think he got. Never mind.
Sure.
So the buybacks is a very interesting story because I spoke about it, as you know my position. You're asking, but you know what I'm going to answer, because I spoke about it with Dan Ives on my interview, and I stated my position very clearly. I think, look, buybacks, it's a very it's a very dicey thing to do. For example, Tesla has not done a buyback yet, and they definitely can afford it. They're good for it. And there's a lot of pressure from institutional investors. Just look at what Gary Black has been screaming buybacks for the past 3 years. Buyback! Gary Black, the only thing ever, it's like buyback, buyback, buyback. Every tweet that Gary Black is like,
Yeah.
so institutions are really asking for buybacks for Tesla. They're in the right position. The stock is cheap. The perfect setup. They're still not buying back, mainly because two things, right? Elon is always going to think he's the best allocator of his own capital, and I get it. He is. And number two, he has so much capex in his business.
Yeah.
It's so he's going to need those 20 something billion dollars. He's
Sure.
building a
Sure. Yeah.
with Palantir, it's a different story. You know, I said it to Dan. He agreed with me. Look, it's not a capex hype business, right? You writing code, so there's no, you're not building factories. You're sitting on a pile of cash, $3 billion of cash. You have no debt, so it makes sense. So why not do it earlier when it was $7? You could technically do it, but as I said to Dan, like, it's such a psychological thing. What's the purpose of a buyback? The purpose of a buyback is to send a message to professional investors, to institutions, to say, hey, we as the company think that our share price is low and we're putting our money where our mouth is. It's a psychological game you're playing.
Sure.
If you're doing this when the share price went from $35 to $7, you're basically being perceived as somebody who's trying to panic and manipulate the share price and save his own ass. Nobody's going to take it seriously. You're going to burn through that billion. No effect is going to happen. So they had to do it from a position of strength. I get why mathematically that makes no sense, but it's a psychological game. The same people who criticize them for doing that criticize them for not playing the game of Wall Street and institutional investors. So now, you know, it's the same joke about, you know, you come a rabbit goes a rabbit lives next door to a turtle, and then the rabbit comes into the turtle house, and the turtle says, hey, can you grab me a cup of coffee? And then comes in with the coffee, and then the turtle slaps him on the face. It's like, why? No sugar. Okay, sorry. He goes back, comes back with the sugar, slaps him again. Why? No coaster. Anyway, so he does that for an hour. An hour later, the coffee's fucking perfect. He still slaps him. It's like, why? You got no head on, motherfucker. So I mean, it's the same people who hate on Palantir, you know, for whatever reason. Maybe they're against buybacks now. I think that's a completely irrelevant point. We're talking about buybacks over the course of God knows how long.
Yeah.
It's definitely the right signal to send. They got the money, they're good for it, and with the amount of dilution they went through, partially because of that billion that they gave to Carp, right? It's just the right thing to do. They have to start slicing back a little bit from the share count. So I
Right.
have no issues with it. I think that will have a lesser effect on the share price than the S&P inclusion. I think the S&P inclusion is the bank charter moment for Palantir. That buyback is nice to have, but I don't think it's dramatic.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you know, going back to SoFi, I find that's one of the reasons that I think people, you know, sort of underestimate the stock is like, you have to remember it's a bank at the end of the day. And what do banks do? They buy back shares, they issue dividends,
Yeah.
they increase dividends, they have a ton of earnings. And yet right now, because they're in a very big growing phase, people don't think that they're going
Yeah.
to get there. And that was very similar for the first 17, 18 years of Palantir's life, is like people never thought that they would be profitable. Now that they are, people are going, you know, now let's do
No,
what,
then
what
now
profitable companies do.
now that they are, people are saying, oh, you know, it's fake profits. Whatever. I don't care about that. I'm just saying,
Yeah.
look, SoFi, let's stick with SoFi here, because like that's why we're here to talk.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, there's plenty of Palantir content on my channel. God knows. Look, name me a bank in North America that appeals to this demographic except SoFi.
Well, you know what? What I think is
Name one. You think like kids give a fuck about Bank of America or Chase or anyone like who's appealing to that demographic? Like,
Yeah. I don't even think like an amazing. He's a Cornerstone Advisors research analyst. and he put out an article talking about how where the bulk of people are moving, their checking accounts from traditional banks over to fintechs, and it's literally of all ages. The baby boomers, the Gen X, the millennials, the Gen Z are all considering fintechs to be not as high as the mega banks. Still, I think it's like 81% of people use the traditional banks, but it is growing like gangbusters numbers, going from, even at the start of the pandemic till now. There's still the percentage, I think, that he said of new account signups for fintechs and digital banks
Yep.
this last quarter, I think was 47%, versus like before the pandemic was like less than 20. So it's the shift. All the new accounts are going to these very, low operating costs, no
Yeah.
branches, style of companies like SoFi, where they can offer you higher earnings on your accounts, 4.5%, where
Yep.
traditional banks just wouldn't step anywhere near that. JP Morgan, it's like they don't even want to try anymore. And
They're sitting on an aging population. It's like look, it's like Tesla with the dealerships.
yeah,
It's like when you're
it's
cutting through,
exactly the same.
you're cutting out all these expenses out of the game. So all this sunk costs that they got, their fixed costs are gone. So look, when I choose think about it. Okay, let's talk about like from a customer perspective. When the customer chooses where to bank, what are the three things a customer looks at? Number one is obviously the price, right? What are you getting, right?
Sure.
That's the first thing I'm going to look at. I'm going to shop around. I'm going to see. Number two, ease of use. I want a mobile app that actually makes sense, that's easy to use. I want the desktop interface that's easy to use. I want them to communicate with each other. I don't want to be spammed. I want a customer experience, a UX UI that makes sense. Number three, I don't want to deal with customer service of banks.
Yeah.
Customer service in Bank of America and Chase and all these fucking old ass institutions, it feels like going through purgatory, bro. It's like the back rooms.
Right.
It's hell, bro. I
Yeah.
want somebody who understands me, agile customer service.
Yeah.
And like if you combine all these three factors, it's going to be hard to compete with SoFi of the next decade for these classic institutions. It's the same thing like how Ford and GM will have to pivot to compete with Tesla. It's going to be hard.
That
And
honestly, that is it's exactly like that. And you see the comments probably back in, or like even 2-3 years ago, talking about Tesla and stuff, where people go, once Ford and GM want to, they'll squash Tesla like the bug they are. But the longer they wait,
yeah,
this bug becomes a really hard problem that they're dealing with. And now it seems like that inflection point is way past them. And now they're dealing with a massive auto company.
well, they've changed the narrative now that they've realized that Ford and GM are shit. By the way, that's one thing I didn't agree with Dan Ives on the stream when he said GM are going to turn around. Like I pushed back a little bit. I didn't want to like go heavy on this. Like he still thinks they can turn it around. But the one thing we agreed on is they're not going to be number one ever again. So he said GM and
Yeah.
Ford are never going to be number one again in the U.S. He said that he thinks they'll survive, and I said they'll probably survive, but it's going to be on life support by the government because it's just too.
But I think SoFi today is like Tesla 2016.
Yeah. But
Like,
the
you
thing
know
is,
what I
look,
mean?
they said, look at the criticism, right? Let's stay in this analogy, right? SoFi, Tesla, right? Tesla, they said Ford and GM, that fizzled out. Then it said the Germans. So I was just look, it's not empirical data, right? I was just in France for a week. The amount of Teslas I've seen on the road, it's absolutely mind blowing. I felt like I was in California.
Yeah.
The amount of Teslas is insane. The amount of US made cars I've seen beyond, except the Tesla, was just Wranglers. And that's just because they're no longer Americans. They're
Yeah,
owned
yeah,
by
yeah.
Stellantis. So the Wranglers are not really American cars. So lots of Wranglers and Tesla's Model Ys. The amount of ID4, I haven't seen a single ID4. I haven't seen a single ID3. I haven't seen a single Kia, Hyundai. I haven't seen a single Toyota. I haven't seen like electric vehicles. The only electric vehicle I saw for a week, and I traveled through the entire south of France.
Yeah. Yeah.
I haven't seen a single electric car other than a Tesla. Maybe there are there, but I mean, I haven't seen it. So don't tell me this bullshit about, Tesla Model Y is the best-selling electric vehicle in Germany. So fuck
Yeah.
off with that shit, bro.
No, I agree. I agree. And I just saw recently that Wells Fargo just put a $30 billion buyback program to buy back their shares. They increased their dividend, everything like this. And they were distinctly named as being one of the largest losers whenever it came to the new checking account openings
Yeah.
of the article that I'm talking about, written by Ron Shevlin. What I think is so funny about that, if you would have taken $30 billion, you could have bought SoFi and then also invested for probably the next couple of years into acquiring new companies or new customers and been
Yep.
right back in the game. But because you continue to blow off this competition, this future competition, I think you're going to continue to lose market share. These companies are dying in deposits, and they're saying it's a big macro environment, but you're not seeing that from SoFi. SoFi has not wavered in their deposit growth.
No.
Customers continue to bring over their direct deposits. Like, the signs are there. The people want this product more than ever. And I feel like their unbranded or unaided brand awareness is just going to keep getting stronger. Similarly with Tesla, people didn't even know what an electric car was. Now there's a ton of options to
Yeah.
charge your car all over the country. The awareness is only going to get stronger.
Look, it's the same thing with Ford for like Ford for years. Everybody who they wanted to get rid of couldn't fire. They put them in the electric vehicle division. No
Say that again.
infrastructure. Like in Ford for years when the previous, I don't want to say, before Farley there was another CEO. Never mind.
Hmm.
He wasn't like as oriented towards EVs.
Yeah, yeah.
So they had an EV kind of department, but from first hand, like people that work for Ford mentioned to me that it was known that whoever they wanted to get rid of, but they couldn't fire, they dump him into the EV department.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
So that was kind of the purgatory for like for years. I'm talking pre Jim Farley,
Yeah,
back
yeah,
in the day.
yeah.
So it's the same thing right now that they're doing with. Look, it's the same thing that they're doing with dealerships right now. The old business model is dying with banking. The old business model is dying with vehicles. The world is changing, right? There's a few companies that are leading that charge, and some banks, some ICE manufacturers will pivot, right? Some will not. The In 2030, the way banking is set up is going to be entirely different than what we have today. So ask yourself this question, right? Who has the best chance right now? God knows what happens, right? There's no certainties in life, right? Nothing is certain except death, taxes, and Tesla, right? But except these three things, like who, if you had to look at 2030, who you put your money as to be the dominant player in 7 years? Would you
Yeah.
bet on Wells Fargo, on Bank of America, on Chase? I mean, or you bet on SoFi if you give them if you give them 7 years, I don't know. They're a very good candidate in my opinion. Again, anything can happen. Don't forget these old ass industries. They're very protectionist as far a lot of lobbying money, a lot of political power, a lot of so they won't die easy. Maybe they won't die at all, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But there's definitely going to be a whole different. The playing field is going to be completely different. And if you got good management, you got a good brand awareness, you're smart with your money, and I think so far all these things, I think they have a good shot. Especially the way things are working right now. It's like, look, I think the pandemic changed a lot the culture. Like the one thing that I got wrong during the pandemic, I thought that people really don't want to do anything outside anymore. So that was a complete misunderstanding. Like people do want to go outside, they want to hang out. They just don't want to do out like things outside that are just dealing with douchebags. They don't want to work with other people. They'd rather work from home. That's for
Yeah.
sure, right? Because who wants to go to a place with a bunch of douchebags that you can't stand and be there all day, right? Nobody wants to go to the fucking bank and stand in line and deal with some fucking douchebag clerk and some people in the line.
It's brutal.
Like banking is one of those things that the pandemic really exposed the cultural change that happened. Like people realized, oh, we don't never have to go to the bank ever again.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like that never happened. Like even before the pandemic, there was apps and shit, right? But that culture mindset, like you don't have to go to work and you don't have to go to the bank, right?
Yeah.
So how the classic banking industry have adapted to this, I think they've done jack shit. Diddly squat.
Well, so one of the things that you said there that I think is so important is the lobbying side, right?
Oh yeah.
I do think the Apple Pays, the PayPal's, the Cash Apps, the Venmos, those people should. I don't even think they should worry. I'm a big bull for a lot of those players, but that being said, they don't quite have that same. They kind of rent bank charters. They deal in a lot of sort of skirting around there's an amendment called the Durbin Amendment that has kind of tried to stop big banking's debit interchange fees. PayPal gets around that by dealing with tiny banks, and it's always been a political issue, and there could be some regulation there. What I do like about SoFi, they have the exact same banking license as JP Morgan. They're a fully chartered bank now. They have a more important bank license than Goldman Sachs, right?
That was such a brilliant move. That's probably one of the most important acquisitions in the last 5 years in the market. Like, think about it, of a more important acquisition that happened in the past 5 years in any industry.
I'm not sure. But I do think like they went out even before then to get lending licenses in all 50 states. Anthony noted, this is literally what changed me, was his conversation about how there's other fintechs that go around and do it the easier way and rent those licenses without having, like, it's tedious, it's expensive to do all these regulations, but it's the right thing to do and it'll pay off in the long term. And he said, that's the way we are always going to do it. And like that 100% convinced me.
Yeah. I was about to say, before I interrupted you, that's kind of my thing. I'm sorry. I was about to say, like, that's what happens when you get a CEO who's like a West Point grad. They're going to do it the right way, bro. They're going to do it the right way, no matter how tough it is, bro. It is what it is.
Yeah. No, I'm a big believer in that. And I don't know how they even stop SoFi at this point, because even like digital banking, like Bank of America, JP Morgan, Wells Fargo, they all have large digital banking operations. It's just they don't have the same, UI benefits. They don't have the same, benefits to their users. And the one thing that I think is super important, and maybe we'll leave it off on this, okay? What I think is so amazing about SoFi right now, and it's the same thing that Tesla has benefited from as well, is a lot of the money. Like, how can SoFi offer 4.5%, but JP Morgan with trillions of dollars is not allowed to offer 4.5%? It's because they're giving 4.5% out to their dividends to all their shareholders. The money that you're placing in JP Morgan is being better treated. Your interest that you're earning is going to someone else. It's going to the shareholders of those businesses and supporting the likes of Jamie Dimon's big pension fund, right? Where I think SoFi is doing a customer-first approach, and their customers are actually getting treated first before shareholders. And in that case, they're able to grow in the market share.
You know what it reminds me of? The big banks are kind of like the classic auto industry. They have to maintain their dividend policy, otherwise they're going to scare off their investors. They understand that that's dragging them down because they can't compete with SoFi.
Yep.
But they got to maintain it because otherwise they're going to go kaboom.
Yeah, you can't change it, or else you get your share price gets destroyed.
Yeah.
So you have to maintain all these massive funds and all your ex-employees' payment funds and all these things, all these massive expenses. You can't be as light and agile as Tesla was. You can't be as light and agile as SoFi is.
Yeah, that's the problem. If Ford cuts out their dealerships, they're fucked.
Yeah.
There's so much lobby politics involved in this. So many like jobs, etc., etc., etc. They would love to go do what Tesla's done.
Yeah.
But they can't. That's the beauty of being the new kid on the block. You get to do these crazy things that, be way faster, way quicker. And that's the beauty. That's kind of like your channel. Think about it. Like, you come in, all these you're beating down the door on all the big guys. You get to be more agile, do whatever you want. I mean, that's the same thing. You're the SoFi.
There we go, eh?
You're the SoFi of YouTube Finance, my guy. And I'm JP Morgan.
Well, you know what? I'm glad that we can still sit at the table and chat, eh? No, Tom Nash, the great Tom Nash. Thank you so much for joining me here today. There's going to be a part 2. We'll have to discuss when that's going to be.
It's on my channel.
On Tom's channel.